Today we're going to carry on looking at operating systems as part of our hardware and processing unit. So to start off with a little quiz, I've got two pictures here of two operating systems. Number one, you should be pretty familiar with. So can you name the operating system? I know that you've all used it. Number two is a little bit trickier. I wonder if anybody recognises that one. So let's reveal, see what they are. So number one was Windows. And number two is Linux. So this is a Linux build for a Raspberry Pi computer. So some of you might be familiar with the Raspberry Pi computers, and that's the symbol for them. Okay, let's try a couple more. So number three and number four. Again, I think number four, some of you will be familiar with. Number three, maybe. Let's have a look, see if anybody got these right. So number three is Android, and number four is Mac OS. So those are on Apple Mac computers. Okay, so there are lots of different operating systems. What's the difference between them? So each OS is made by a different company or organization, and they each have their own unique features and uses. So let's explore what those different features and uses are. So Windows, it's made for PCs. It is the most common operating system. Okay, if it's a PC, it's usually going to be running Windows. Okay, it needs to be bought. It's not a free piece of software, so you need to buy it if you're going to have it on your computer. It's made by Microsoft, and the software that you use is made for Windows. So things like PowerPoint and Word and Publisher and Chrome and Edge and all those different things, software is usually made for Windows, and it's really, really user friendly. So it's really easy for you to use, and most people will be able to sit at a Windows machine and have no problems at all. Mac OS is made for Apple desktops. So this is for Apple Macs, whether that's a laptop or a PC, and it's quite a common operating system. Not as common as Windows because there aren't as many Macs around, but still quite common. Again, it needs to be bought, and it's made by Apple. So the company that make it are called Apple. It requires specific software, so you can have programs on your Apple that have to be made for Apple. You can't just transfer the same ones that you'd use for Windows onto the Apple operating system. But it is very, very user friendly. So it's nice and easy and simple to use and easy to navigate. It's also used quite a lot in the creative industries, from design to music recording to engineering to art. So it's used in lots of creative industries as well. You've got Linux. Now Linux is a little bit different because it's made for PCs, and it's not quite as common. You won't see many Linux computers set up, but it's free to download, and it's made by the community. So there isn't a company that makes Linux. It's made by programmers in their spare time, and it can be used for a variety of different things. So it's really, really flexible. So sometimes if you see a computer that maybe isn't set up as a keyboard and mouse computer, so let's say a touch screen at a supermarket, chances are that's running some form of Linux in the background. It's been programmed to do a specific job, and it does that job all day. So lots of single-use computers actually use Linux as their operating system. A little bit like Apple, the software you use on it has got to be specifically made for Linux. So the Windows operating system has its own programs that we all know. Those won't work directly on Linux. There has to be special Linux versions. And there are lots and lots of different versions of Linux. So you saw earlier there's one for Raspberry Pis, but there's loads and loads of different versions that do different jobs. And you've got Android. So Android is made for PCs, but you'll see it also on mobile devices. It is less frequently used on PCs and more common on your mobile devices. The mobile device, it comes packaged in, so we'll say it's free with a mobile device, but actually for PC, you have to pay for it now. It's made by Google, and the software for this all comes from the Google Play App Store. So again, different to your Windows apps, again, you can only use the ones that appear on that store. It's very, very user-friendly, easy to use, but it's not very flexible. Unless you've got an app for it that's been built on the Play Store, chances are it can't do what you want it to do. So quick summary here of the things I've spoken about. So you can see that Linux is the only one that is free. Usually when you buy a PC or an Apple Mac, you're going to get an operating system with it. And most of the time, if it's a PC, you're going to get Microsoft with it. And if it's an Apple, you're going to get Mac OS with it. Okay, and that's why those are the most widely used ones. Okay, and in terms of user friendliness, Microsoft, Apple and Google are all really well designed. Linux isn't so well designed, but the reason that you might use Linux is if you've got a single use machine. So a machine that's got one job to do. So our learning intention was to understand there's a range of operating systems, so you know about 4 different operating systems there. So your success criteria are bronze, list a number of operating systems, so you know 4, you can list 4. Explain the features of those operating systems, that's your silver. Compare the advantages of the different operating systems, so why might you use one operating system over another, and then give an example of where one might be used, so where might I find that operating system. Okay, you've got your vocab, which is hardware, so that's the physical things that make up the computer, the case, the hard drive, the CPU. You've got software, those are the programs that live on the hard drive, the programs that you open on your computer. Interface is what the computer looks like when you turn it on, so the screen, what are the icons, the menus, those are your interface. User-friendly is just how easy it is to use, and community is the group of programmers that worked on Linux. And when we talk about community in this case, we're talking about a community of people that worked over the internet to build Linux. Okay, best of luck with your task to design a beginner's guide leaflet to these 4 operating systems.